In the last class, we were discussing and we got introduced into the concept of web services, and then we saw a little bit about web services in ASP.NET. In today's class, what I'm going to do is continue that same concept but a different program. And towards the end, I want to show you some examples of where web services are going on. And those who have worked already with APIs, web APIs, I guess most of you know what's the full form of an API, right? Application programming interfaces. Now, those who have already worked with web APIs, web services are almost the same, except the way in which they work and the way in which they communicate. Normally, we have APIs delivering JSON format data. Okay, and here we do not expect not only JSON format, the common interchange language here is XML. Okay, that's the biggest difference we could see when it comes to web services. All right. So what I'll do is first I'll show you how do you create a web service and then how do you consume a web service using ASP.NET. And since I cannot host it in our regular server, I'm going to show it in the same system itself. But just imagine how it is efficient when you host it online and anybody can use your service. In my demo, what I'm going to do is I am going to create a web service. I'm going to consume it also in my laptop only because I'm using in localhost. I'll be using in both in the same system. But when it comes to in real world, we'll be putting this web service on a server, okay, in which web services would be running and we can charge it. Okay, it's not like we have to give it for free. It's very rare to find a free web service, but then you would have seen that there are a lot of APIs available which are free. Like for example, YouTube API is free. Facebook APIs are free, Google APIs. There are a lot of APIs available for free. I'll show them and we'll see what those are a little bit later. But let me just do the program what I'm intending to do in this class. Okay, I'm going to take an example of login. Okay, I'll take an example of a login. Now, you would have seen that a lot of websites offer their logins in order to log into somebody else's website. Like for example, Flipkart. Okay, you can use Google account which you have, or Flipkart, sorry, a Facebook account which you have, or a Twitter account which you have, and then log in to another website. But you are using that credentials which you just, for example, if I have a Google account, okay, with just remembering the Google credential, I can log into a number of websites. Okay, the reason why they have given that as an API is they are already well established. All right, so they already have a very sophisticated login and user management system. So instead of others creating a new one for their own website, we can use the feature which is already developed by somebody, okay, without even writing a single line of code. Okay, but I can just use that. Okay, what we are going to see right now is first part is as being a developer, how you're going to create a login module. Please note, I'm only going to create login, not registration, but idea is still the same. All right, so I'm going to create a simple web service which is going to give me or take username and password and say whether it is success or failure or what is wrong, all those issues. Okay, so with that in mind, let me create a new web service. So I'm going to my Solution Explorer and I'm going to add a new web service to this already existing project called Web Services Demo. All right, so let me add a new web service which is known with the file extension as .asmx. Okay, I'm going to choose that and I'm going to name it as login web service. Okay. Please note, I have just created another ASMX file inside my already existing project called Web Services Demo. All right, and there already has a simple method called Hello World. I'm not going to delete it. Let it be there. All right. In the meantime, first let me just also go and create a database, because in order to create a database, in order to do a login, dynamic login, we need a database. So imagine that this is a website in which I already have a login page. Like say for example, we are a website like Google, and we already have created a username and password stuff for our customers. All right. So what we are going to do is we are going to extend that to somebody else. Okay, so how do I use that? So first let me do a simple login page here in our project, and then we will take that login code, the logic, to a web service. Okay, for that I need a database. Let me create a database. So I'm going to add a new SQL Server database. Let me name it as users DB. Okay, and I'm going to add it in app underscore data folder. And once it is added, I'm going to create a simple table which will hold the details of the user. Okay, I hope by now you should be able to know how to create table, how to execute retrieval, insert, update and delete and all those things on that particular table. So what I'm going to do right now is, as soon as the database is ready, I'm going to create a simple table which is called as, let's say, TBL users or something. I'm going to keep some data which is relevant for us to keep about a user. Okay, I'm not going to take much because I'm only focused on username and password. So anyway, let me go to table, let me right click and add a new table. Okay, and by now I think you would have gotten used to how this works. Okay, so let me just add a new table. I'll remove that word table from here and I'll give the proper name for that. I'll put it as TBL users. Okay, and once the design surface is ready, you can do it here, or you can even start typing code here. That's also fine, but let's wait for the design to load. Once the design is ready, we'll create, let the UID be there. This is a user ID, so let me not touch that. Okay, but apart from that, I'm going to create username, okay, and then password, then email address, then mobile, okay, and then I'm going to put also a name. Okay, that's all. I'm going to keep only few records, not more. So let me start with user underscore ID, which is going to be an integer, which is going to be a primary key. Okay, I'm not going to change this, guys. Please remember, always recommended to keep a number as a primary key, not as the username. For example, some people keep username as primary key, or let's say their email address as primary key. It is not recommended. Rather, you can keep something like this and make the user ID as unique. Okay, that is possible. So let me just put user ID and then I'll put user underscore name. Okay, which is going to be a varchar. Okay, please be very careful of what you have chosen there. Okay, it should be a varchar. Let's keep it as 50 characters and no null is not allowed. Then I'll go to user underscore pswd, which is password, which is also going to be a varchar. Okay, let's say 50 characters right now, but you can change it into how many ever characters, especially if you have a restriction on the amount of characters. Okay, and then I'm going to keep user underscore email, which is again a varchar. Okay, I'm not going to take much data here. Let's also keep one more thing, which is name, user underscore display name or DP name or something like that. We can keep this is username. Okay, which is what okay, let me just not keep this. Let it be the user's name. This is, let it be password, let it be email. So how he'll log in, he'll be logging in using his email and his password. We'll keep it like that. Okay, and last one, I can also add, like, say something like gender or date of birth, whatever you want to keep. I'm going to just keep mobile. Okay, and let it be also a varchar, or you can keep it as an integer, not an integer, actually 10 digits, right? So you should keep it as a decimal, or a double. Okay, you can keep it like that, that'll be better. Okay, so but right now let me keep it as varchar because I'm not going to focus on that. Only focus is going to be on a username and or email ID and password. Okay, so let me keep it as 10 digit mobile number. Okay, so 10 characters are allowed. That's it. Okay, this is enough. Let me just make sure that none of these are null, and we can also say that when it comes to these things, all right, so when it comes to data structure, I think this is not important for me to explain, but then please remember, always keep your this one as auto increment, or if you are not keeping it as auto increment, you will have to manually or programmatically create a new ID and then insert it. So it's always better to put it as identity specification true, so that it will automatically start with 1 and continue. All right, so with that, my table design is ready. Let me just click on update and let me just click on update database. Let me just create 1 or 2 records and keep. Okay, I hope by now you know how to create, insert and update records of this particular thing. I'm not going to do that. I'm only going to do login. Okay, so let me open the table. And let me add 1 or 2 data there. Okay, user ID I'm not going to insert. Okay, next one I'm going to put a user. Okay, I'm going to put Jack, and username is Jack123. Password is jack@gmail.com. Okay, I'm going to keep like that, and mobile number I'm going to just put 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10. Okay, so that one record is inserted. Next one I'll just put Jill123 jill@gmail.com. okay, so and the next password I'm going to use it, mobile number, something I'm giving. Okay, so that's it. So I have two records here. I have two usernames. Your email ID will be their username. Password will be this. Okay, so I've kept it like this, and my table design is ready. Now, before I create a web service, let us check in our regular programming whether it works or not. Okay, and by the way, I'm not going to use ADO.NET. I'm not going to use language integrated query. Rather, I'm going to use entity framework. Okay, so let me create a simple web page which will called as login.aspx. By the way, why I'm doing this is just to test. Okay, not as a web service. Web service I'll do at the end. All right, so let me just create a simple web form with master page, and let me name it as login. Okay, and I'll create a login.aspx file. All right, and let's create a simple page which will take this. Okay, by the way, in the next page, in the next project, okay, I'm going to keep this project running. Another project, I'll use this login page. All right, and I'll show you how user management can be done in the next class. But this class, if time permits, I'll do that. Okay, so let me just create a table. HTML table I'll put there, and I'll ask the user to enter his user or email address. Okay, so I need a text box there, and I need another text box below, username, password. Last one is a submit button. Okay, so that's it, and I'm going to show the result of that in a label. So I'm going to put a label also below. Okay, now with that design is done, let me go back and finish this design. Okay, so I'll ask the enter your email address. All right, next one, enter password. Okay, and here the user is going to get the result, whether it is username is password is right or whether it is wrong or all those things. Okay, and let me finish the design quickly. So let me just choose these two. I'll go to CSS class. I'll say form hyphen control. Okay, and this button I'll give the CSS as btn hyphen success. Okay, and the label let it be there. Let me just change the properties now one by one. First one is text box. Please note, in all my programs I'm purposely leaving the third column blank. All right, I'm not deleting those columns. I'm keeping that third column blank. I hope you guys can see that. Okay, the reason is because I want you guys to do the validation part of it. All right, so for the record purposes, whatever program I have done is in the record. I guess you have seen the lab list. Okay, so I'm got into the lab list which is there, and whatever program I have not done, you are supposed to do. I think almost everything I've done. Okay, but there are some programs in which I have not used validation. So you are expected to use validation appropriately wherever it is possible. That's why I'm leaving this column blank. You are supposed to do it. Okay, I think by now you would be familiar with that. So let me go to this one. Let me change the properties. First text box is txt email. Okay, I'm going to take the email address from the user. Second text box is going to take the password. So I'm going to say txt pswd, and also I'm going to change it from single line to password, so that the text box would look like, I mean, the password will not be shown to the users who are standing there. Okay, so then I'll go to button. Let me name it as btn login, and text I'll change it as login. All right, and this label will be the result. So I'm going to put lbl result just to check whether it is working or not. Okay, and label I'll not put anything right now. I'll programmatically display it there. Okay, let me also change the color or the size at least. Okay, so let me just give it a bigger size so that you can see the result there. Done. Okay, you can change the color and all those things later, or through program also you can change it. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the logic part. Okay, so when you click on login, what do you want me to do? All right, please note, as soon as you click on submit or login, I wanted to take username and password and check whether it is right in the database. So now I need database. So I told you that this project I'm going to use entity framework. I'm going to right click on this project, add a new item. Okay, you can call them as ADO.NET entity data classes. Okay, I'm looking for data-based structure where I choose ADO.NET entity data model. Okay, I'll name it as user DB model, and then click on add. Okay, it's going to ask me a dialog whether you want to create it from the database. Yes, I already have a database created. So entity framework designer from database. And since my database is already in this project, that user db.mdf is already connected, and it is already creating a connection string automatically, and then it is adding it to the web.config as users db entities. Okay, let's click on next, and I'm going to choose the latest entity framework. And based on the database, what you have, the database details are retrieved, and you can see that here. Inside a database object, you have TBL users. So please note, I've used also this enable pluralize or singularize, which means to users will become user in my table. All right, with that, let me click on finish. So which means after I finish this, my entity framework designer should be opened up in another page where it looks like a class diagram. Okay, and the context of that we should be called as entities. And inside that I have one. Okay, let me show that shortly. I guess by now you know that when I add this, it will be converted into a POCO, a plain old C# object. Okay, which means all database structure what you had created will be converted into an object-oriented construct here in C#. Okay, so their table name was TBL users. Here class name will be TBL user. Okay, there you have user ID, name, email, password, phone number, like that you have. Here all those will become a property of that particular class. Okay, which means if I create an instance of that class, you will get one row in the database table. Okay, that's the idea. So anyway, once it is done, you can see the table structure here. TBL users, sorry, user singular, because this is the class. Okay, so in my database actually is TBL users. The class which was created is singularized here. All right, and there are properties. There are five important properties available inside that particular table. So this is done. Well, let me just save this. Okay, that star there means it is not saved yet. So please do save it. And after saving it, let's go to the code. Okay, that's all is from our point is required, guys. Nothing else is required here. You can also see what is the name of the container. The entity container's name is users db entities. So this will be the container in which all my tables are put. Okay, so imagine if I had 2-3 tables, my the entity container name will be one only. All right, only one container will be there. I can have n number of tables dragged and dropped here or created through that structure here. Okay, please remember that. And also, what if I added a new table and I want that? Right click on this container and then say update. Okay, update model from database. Then you can go and see whether if you have new other tables have been added, you can add them also here. Okay, since I have only one table, I leave it like this. Let me go back to the code. Now in the code, what do you want me to do? Okay, it's very simple here. Just like how I done in the previous one, I'm going to take up using. Okay, I need to bring that entity. So I'm going to call the container, which is users db entities. Let me name it as db is equal to new users db entities. Okay, so now in what context is the cursor blinking right now? It is inside a using block which uses this resource in order to perform the following operations. As soon as you come out of the using block, this this object will be deleted. In other words, it will be made to null, which means your resource is managed properly only when it is required. Okay, so with that, what am I supposed to do? All right, so it's very simple. Our query is retrieve from this database a particular table which has username as whatever you have entered and password as whatever you have entered. If that there is a result in that, okay, then I want you to say that there is what do you call the user exists. Otherwise, no. That's all. Very simple. So for that, what am I supposed to do? First, I'm supposed to retrieve a row in the database or in the table of the database, okay, which has the username what the user has given and the password which the user has given, which means I'm looking for one row. If I want one row in the database on the table, here what am I supposed to do? I'm supposed to create one object. So I'm going to type TBL. Okay, you get the object here. Please note it is not users. Users is my table name. User is my class name. Singular, plural, so that it is easy for us to differentiate. If you want to keep it as it is also not a problem. Okay, just because it will be confusing as we move for higher tables and many tables joins and stuff, it will be confusing. That's why they have singularized or pluralized. Imagine if I had given TBL user in the database, here it would have become users. Okay, it's just vice versa. All right, so I have an object of the TBL user. So let me just put it as user is equal to. Okay, now I need to formulate. All right, or I need to fetch that particular user from the table. So how do I fetch? What details do I give to this user? I give what is the username and what is the password. So basically what I'm going to write is from, okay, some row in db.tbl users. Okay, this is the source of my data from some name range variable in my collection. What is the collection? Inside this database, what is this DB users DB entities? It is the container. If you go to the property, you can see it's the container's name is user DB entities. Inside that container, you have a table. So let's say inside this container, there's a table called TBL users, which is from the database. Okay. Now, what do you want me to do from that? By now, your system is already aware of whom you're talking to. Okay. So when you pass a query, so I'm going to say where, all right, row dot, you can see that all those things are coming, what I gave in the database. All right. So where user underscore email is equal to, please note, why am I writing equal to is because this is C#, this is not SQL, what I'm typing. Okay. So double equal to in C# means comparison. One equal to here means assignment. In where clause, you're looking for comparison. So I'm going to write txt email dot text. Okay, where row dot users email is equal to whatever you have entered as email. Okay, and I want and. All right, so I'm going to type and. It is not a recommended or it is not an allowed keyword here in C#. So in Python, you can write just the word and. But here you cannot write the word and because you're still in programming language. In programming language, it is denoted by ampersand symbol. Okay, double and. Okay, there are two conditions. Next condition is row dot user underscore password is equal to whatever the user has entered in txt password dot text. Since both are denoting text, okay, I am not writing what do you call? Since both are denoting text, I'm not converting it or parsing it. Okay, so because whatever text I'm expecting from the user is basically a string only. Here also it's a string. All right, so I've got that. So let me go back and now say select row. Okay, with that I cannot stop. I hope you guys remember what I told about this. All right, so specifically you are saying look for this email address and look for this password. So if that is available, then select that row. Okay, I've written the code is proper, but still C# has an issue with this. Okay, can anybody tell me why it is a problem? Can anybody recollect? Okay, Shravan has already given the answer, but can you tell me the reason? Okay, that's the solution what you have given. All right, so can you guys just think of why this error is coming and why if it has first and it fixes that issue. Okay, it has a possibility that it can return more than one row. All right. Okay, perfect. So that's something which you guys can understand, I hope. All right. So which means this query has the possibility of returning more than one row. All right, because there is no such thing as unique here. That's how you should understand this. All right, there is no way in which the system can specifically decide or specifically look at saying that this query what you have written, okay, will return only one object. Okay, what if it returns a collection of objects? Okay, what if the user has email address? You know that you have unique and all those things, but then with respect to objects, you cannot do that. All right, so what should I do? How do I fix this? Take this entire thing, okay, and then say dot first. So what does it mean? Okay, the moment you put this, that error goes away and your code is proper now. Okay, what have I told here? Okay, you have told that fetch the record where the username is so and so and password equal to so and select that. Okay, select the entire data. In other words, how do I write it in SQL? Select star from table users where email address is equal to whatever you have entered and password equal to whatever you have entered. This is what we would have written in SQL. But here you see we have written select star, which means everything in that row in TBL users where row user email equal to whatever the user has entered in the text box and password is wherever he has entered in this password text box. Okay, so now there is a problem here that all the records are stored in user. Okay, it doesn't matter whether you're retrieving one or two because login basically only looks for yes or no. Okay, it is not looking for any data which you get. So you can just say select row, not a problem. Okay, all you need to make sure is that that this user object is not null. Okay, what if it is null? If it is null, which means nothing has come from this query. Okay, I hope you guys follow this, right? So what do you mean by first here? Okay, I say select star. Imagine there are two issues. You can't get two records, but in case there are two records also, give me the first one. Since there is only one record possible, the first record what you get from this query is the only record which is there in that query. So that's why this query makes it easier for us, or this function makes it easier. And by this time, the query would have gotten executed because you have tried to access something from the collection. Guys, I hope you guys remember that one point what I specifically told. It was the keyword is lazy loading. Okay, or lazy initialization, lazy execution. Deferred execution is the technical word. All right, so what is deferred execution? A link query, a language integrated query. Okay, please note, even though it is entity framework, what I have written is language integrated query, right? So a language integrated query will not get executed as long as, okay, until you iterate through the elements in that particular list or the collection what the link is retrieving. Okay, or you try to access elements. Okay, you iterate through the elements or you try to access something which is there in the result. Okay, without which that query will not get executed. In other words, if I don't write this dot first, okay, and I made it as var user, all right, that code will not get executed till you are calling this user object. Okay, but here you see, after calling that particular query, you have put dot first, which means you are trying to access a result which is there in this particular query, which means this query will be executed as soon as this code gets called and user will be filled with data. Okay, if the user is not filled with a particular record from the database, what will be the default value of a object? A default value of an object is null. Okay, so by this time, if that user, okay, if user object is equal to null, what does that mean? Okay, if the user is equal to null, which means the username and password what you have given is wrong. Okay, so else, okay, you can write if this username and password is right, you can log in successfully. Okay, so let me just put that. Let me put lbl result dot text is equal to, I'll just say login failed, invalid username slash password. Okay, that's it. That's your result. If at all the user is null, which means even after this query, if the user object is null, okay, if the query is null, which means nothing is there to retrieve, which means this condition is not satisfied and no record is retrieved. So I'll just say null. Otherwise, what we do is lbl result dot text is equal to login success. Okay, so I'll keep it like this. Now, some of you asked how to programmatically change the this one, the design or the syntax. Okay, you can or easily put it because it's a part of this. You can just say CSS class. Okay, you can also put like this. Okay, lbl hyphen danger. This is a bootstrap query. Okay, you can do like that. All right, here I can say lbl result dot css class is equal to lbl hyphen success. This is also fine. Okay, so let's run this program and check whether it works. Okay, by the way, this is not web service. This is a simple web application which is done, which means this code what I have written cannot be used by any other application apart from my web application. Okay, now I'm going to change this code or make this code into a web service so that anybody can access it if they have registered with me. Okay, if I give them the user ID or the URL, they'll be able to access this username and password thing from anywhere. Okay, let me do that once I check whether this works. Then if it works, then we'll proceed to the web service part. Okay, let's put the email address. I think let me put the first one properly. I think jack@gmail.com. The username was jack123. Okay, let me give a proper username and password. Okay, so let me click on submit. Let's see what happens. Okay, there is login success. All right, I'll tell you why the reason. I'll come to the reason why the color is not changed later. But then let me move out. Okay, let me just give a wrong user password. Okay, and then click on submit. Okay, you see that there is a simple difference here. There is an exception happening. All right, not just an error, rather an exception is happening because you are trying to access something which is not there. You see that because this is not lady or deferred execution, rather it is immediate execution. So you're trying to access and the first is returning an error. Okay, the error is nothing but sequence contains no elements. Okay, I hope you guys can see that. Sequence contains no elements and you're trying to access dot first. Okay, it's not going to work. I hope this is clear to you guys. Alright, so the error is very simple. It just says that you are trying to access something, but it is not working. Okay, so how do I fix this error? Okay, just think about a logic. In a minute, I'll do it. Okay, but just think, what can I do in order to fix this issue? Alright, if you can give me a suggestion, it'll be great. Otherwise, I'll go to that, the answer immediately. But then just think about this. Okay, and before that, let me do one more thing. If the success is there, why is the CSS class not applicable? Because after changing the text, you have put the CSS class. Let me just try to put it before that. Okay. Done. Let me just run this. Let me give the username and password right, and then we'll check. Okay. In the meantime, please think of a way how we can fix that error. Okay, let me just give jack@gmail.com. I'll give a proper username and proper password. Okay. I think I wrote in the wrong place. No. Okay, I'll check that the reason why it's not working later. Okay, but anyway, can you just think of this? Why this error is not? How do I fix this error and move on and say login failed? Just think about it, guys. I'll just go through the methods which are inside that. Just have a glance of it. First, returns the first element of a sequence. Okay, which means return type is the object of the table. All right, followed by which first or default. Okay, returns the first element of a sequence or a default value if the sequence contains no elements. Okay, I guess you can follow what is happening there, right? Okay. So in our code, actually, first and single both would work the same. Only one difference is first automatically understands that many objects are possible. You are retrieving one, or we can use single, which eliminates the possibility of more than one such element existing. Okay, just have a glance of the method which is returns the only element of a sequence that satisfies a specified condition and throws an exception if more than one such element exists. For login and for retrieving one particular person's record with the primary key, it is very, very essential to use single. Okay, I used first just as an understanding, but you see this class I'm using it for understanding the other ones also. Let me change it into first or default. Okay, what will happen if I use first or default? Okay, that becomes a different scenario here because right now the program is running, that's why there's an error. Okay, so just think that when I call first or default, it returns the first element of sequence if a value is there. But if nothing is there, if the sequence contains no elements, it will return a default value. Okay, so let's see what is the default value which is returned. Okay, let me run and see whether it is null or anything else. Right, let's check whether this works or not. Username is correct, password is wrong. Okay, I get login failed, invalid username or password. Alright, but if I give a proper username and password, okay, I'll just put 1, 2, 3 and yes, login is success. I hope you guys got it. So which means using this logic, I can easily return true or false to a method which calls this function with two username and password. Okay, so if the user is equal to null, which is the default value, if there is no first. Okay, please note in the previous code what I wrote was just first. Okay, so instead of first, we can also use a keyword called single. Okay, you can use single or default. In this case, single or default is the correct answer. Alright, why single or default is because it eliminates the possibility of more than one record. Alright, so nobody can have the same email ID one more time. Okay, so you are looking for a single ID. Imagine if there is two records retrieved this user email and this user password, which means your program is not supposed to proceed, which means it's wrong. Okay, so you can give single or default also. Alright, this will throw an error if there is more than one record. If there is no record, it will just throw the default value. But if I just use the word single, it will throw an exception if there is more than one record in that collection, what you have tried to pull. Okay, so this is fine. So now with this in mind, let's go to the web service. I hope this is clear to you guys. Okay, so here what we have done is we have just done a web application. Okay, and I've done a login page using the web application. Now imagine that I'm going to use, instead of writing this big code, okay, let me give this login logic to somebody else. Alright, so a website which I don't have a database, I don't have anything, but I want to use username and password in my website. So how do I do that? Okay, so just for logging in, like for example, Wikipedia, okay, or some websites which there is no much user contribution. Okay, Wikipedia, there is a separate editor thing, you can edit some articles, but otherwise 90% of the people who are visiting Wikipedia are just visitors. Alright, which means they need not store data about the user, just username and password, whether you are a valid user or not. That's all. Okay, but if you want to edit, then you have to create a login, then you have to edit, and whatever you edit should be stored in the database. Okay, so imagine that a scenario in which you want a website where you want to log in and get the username. That's all, nothing else. You don't want to take up what do you call a separate database just to store these user information and all. Because let's say, for example, when you use Google login, you are not creating a user login separately or user database separately in your database. Okay, if there are a million users, you need not create a million records in your database. Rather, it will be stored in Google's database. You are just accessing it. Okay, so that will reduce the load on your server also. That's also another idea. Okay, similarly, when it comes to web, let's say for example Facebook. Okay, Facebook stores its videos on a different server, images on a different server. I'm talking about the database server which holds your video and the images and as well as the text. Okay, all these things are stored in different servers. But when you open Facebook page, you see all are displayed in one page, as if they are all coming from the same source, but they are not coming from the same source. Okay, you can check the, if you have a slow internet connection, you can check at the bottom of the page what and all Facebook is loading. Okay, it's loading a lot of things into one page. Okay, that's what we are trying to focus on now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a web service. I've already created a web service called login web service. Okay, so let's create another web method. So I'm going to create another web method. Okay, please note guys, in this one, all I'm going to do here is if you give me username and password, okay, I'm going to return whether you are a valid user or not. That's all. Nothing else. A simple method. So I'm going to call it as public. Let me keep it as Boolean. Why? Because true or false. Yes or no. Login worked or not. That's all I want to know. So I'm going to give it as login. Okay. I'll just use it as the word my login so that it's clear for us. Okay. So I'll just put my login and that's the method name here. I need two parameters to be passed. Number one, string username. Okay. Second one, string password. You give me two records. Okay, which means you return two records to me. All right, in that case I'm going to after you give me two records, all I'm going to return is whether that username and password matches or not, which means login is successful or not, true or false. That's all I want to return. Okay, with that in mind, let me write the code. Okay, let the error be there, or if you want to fix the error, just write return false in the beginning itself. There's no error, something is returned, so the method is satisfied. Now let's write the code which will make it true. Okay, so first I'm going to write the same way what I've written. Okay, before that, let me just write using. Okay, using what resource? User DB entities. Let me name it as DB is equal to new user DB entities. Please note that I'm repeating the code. Okay, but I need not do it here. In my program also, I can access the same web service. Okay, if you created a web service, anybody can use it. Not just web application, even in your app. Okay, as long as the internet connection is there, you can do a login from your app to this particular website. Okay, it's anyway, desktop application, web application, console, anywhere you can access this. Okay, so here I'm going to create TBL user. Let me name it as user as it is. Okay, is equal to from row in db.tbl users. Okay, where row dot user underscore email is equal to username. Okay, what the user has passed, or you can just give email also. name it as email. Okay, so whatever you have passed, email. All right, and all right, so let me just put ampersand 2 times, and row dot user underscore password is equal to whatever he is passing as password. Select row. Okay, so I hope this is clear to you guys. Now also I need to make sure that it is either first or default, or single or default. Okay, because I'm expecting only one record from that, single or default. Done. Okay, with that our query is done. So all I need to do is to make sure if, all right, if user is not equal to null, return true. Our work here is done. Okay, the same code what I wrote previously, but I've reduced it to a simple method. I hope this is clear to you guys, right? So you give me username or email and password. What I'm going to take is I'm going to take this email and password and go to my method, web method. Okay, and I'm going to open the database from my project here. All right, and access that row. Okay, and if the user email is equal to whatever you have passed and the password is equal to whatever you have passed, and I'm getting a record which is not equal to null, then I'll return true. Imagine the username and password is wrong. This query will not be satisfied. It will come out of the using, it will return false. Okay, that's it. Now let me run this particular page and check the web service whether it is working or not. Okay, in order to make the web service work, please note you have to pass two parameters. One is username, in other words email, the other one is password. Let's wait for the web service to load. Okay, now the web service is loaded and you can see there are two methods. One is hello world, the other one is my login. Let me click on my login, which is what we created. Need to pass two parameters, email and password. So let me pass a proper email address, the correct email address which I have, gmail.com. Password is jack123. All right, let me invoke and see what the method returns, what the web service returns. The web service returns an XML line which has the value as true. Okay, I'm going to invoke it once again with the different value and click on invoke again. It says false. All right, so the web service is ready now. Okay, all you need to do is to host this. All right, on the internet, once you host this web service will be running. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open another Visual Studio just to show that it's a different one. Okay, I'm going to open another Visual Studio project. Okay, let me call, all right, let me open this entity framework demo. Okay, please note it is I'm using another project because I don't have the option of hosting it and then showing it here. Okay, towards the end I'll show you how others can use it. So I'm creating another Visual Studio extension. Okay, there's already a website there. Okay, so all I'm going to do is I'm going to call that here. Okay, so how do I call it here? So first thing is, please note this is entity framework demo, not the previous one. Let me create another page here. Okay, let's say that this page wants a login. So I'm going to add a new web form with the master page and call it as login. Please note I do not have a user database or user DB here. Only thing I have here is login page. All right. So where is the username and password going to be stored? It's stored on the internet or in a different project called as web services demo. Okay. So now first, before I write this code or the design part, okay, I think I already have the design. Let me just copy paste it so that I'll avoid wasting time there. Okay, let me open this source code from the table to table. I'll copy that. I'll go to that other project. I'll go to the source of that, and inside this content, I'll paste it. Okay, but one thing is I need to make sure that the button and all those things, okay, are different because it's anyway different here. So I need not change anything here because it's another project altogether, right? So I just need to double click on login and open that method for login. That's it. Now all I need to do is, there you saw that I had to add entity framework, then a database, then a table, all those things. Here in the project Solution Explorer, let me right click on it and add a service reference. Please note this will work even if the web service is online. Okay, right now I don't have an online web service, so I'm using an offline web service. But either way it goes like this. Okay, you cannot discover it because it is not in the same project. Last class when I showed you, when I clicked on discover, it came here automatically because it was inside the project. But now you see it's outside the project, it is not there. So you need to give a proper email address. So let me go back to my web service. Okay, web service was actually running here. So here I'm going to open the web service, only the ASMX file, not the operation. Okay, or in other words, here, this is enough. This page, I'm going to copy this URL and go to the next project and put this. Okay, like this, people will give you URL to access. So if I click on go and this URL is now accessed, you see there is a web service being discovered at this. See, one service is found at this particular address. It's coming. Instead of this local host, you can actually host it and then call that web service here. All right, so now let me open and see what and all are there. There is my login and there is hello world. So all I need to do is add this web service to my project. Okay, that's all. Let me click on OK. It will get added to my project. Please note, in the previous class, I directly accessed that because it was in the same project. But now I have accessed it or I've added it separately. Okay, so now first of all, I need to make sure that I import. So I'm going to say using, okay, let me say service reference, or let's see what are the things available here. Okay, the project name, entity framework demo dot service reference. Please note, I did not name it, so it came as service reference 1. So I've imported that. I've added this service reference 1 to my project. Okay, that is done. Now all I need to do is create an object of the service reference. Okay, so inside that service reference, what I have. Okay, let me go back and see what is there inside that service reference. Okay, here you can see that I have just added a soap. Okay, let me just find out where it is. Okay, so let me just go and create the name what I'd given as I think web service. Just give me a minute. Okay, login web service. You see that I had given the name as login web service. Let me just go and check whether what's the name I've given for that. Here, it's called as login web service. Okay, so I'm going to create an object of login web service. Okay, you have the soap. All right, so let me just, that's an interface. You cannot create an object of an interface. So let me just scroll down to a place where I find a class. So I have a login web service soap client. Okay, let me just give it as the object, or let me just call it as soap client, right, is equal to new login web service soap client. All right, just create an object of that service reference what we have called. And now let me just call that soap client and then put dot. Okay, and let's see whether I get what I'm looking for. My method is here, my login. Please note, I did not create that method here in this project. It is created in another project, but I'm trying to call it here. Okay, so all I'm going to do here in this project is, you already got the data. So I'm going to say if, all right, if soap client dot my login within brackets, I need to pass two parameters. One is email, another one is password. Let me do it in 2 lines so that it's clear, because if I write everything there, it'll look ugly. So I'm going to create a string called email is equal to txt email dot text 1. Second one, string password, okay, is equal to txt password dot text. That's done. Now all I need to do here is if soap client dot my login email comma password. I just need to pass those two things, and if it returns true, okay, please note, I'm writing it as if it is written in C#, but then please note, even if it was written in a different language, I don't care, because the return type will be XML. But here when it comes, it will be translated to whatever language I'm calling it from. All right, so if this my login returns true, then I can change that lbl result dot text is equal to login success. Okay, if it returns true, else then put that label and say login failed. Done. Please note, I do not know what logic you have followed, what database you have used. Nothing is required. Okay, without even knowing any of those, all I need to do is call the client, okay, and create an object. Once you create the object of the soap client, you can call the method which you wrote in some other project. Okay, so you need not bother how this project was written. Right now, I'm showing you both. I am being the web service provider. I am being the consumer. But it will be not the same, right? So some people would have given you web services and we are trying to consume that web services in another project. So here, anyway, let me run this project and check whether it works. Okay, please note the database of user is not there in this particular project. This project has, I think, with respect to what did I do in this project? I think products or something, I'm not sure. App underscore data, we use product DB. Okay, but user DB is stored in another project. Please remember that. Okay, so let me open this login.aspx. Okay, so let me just put jack at gmail, or let me just put jill at gmail.com. Password is jill123. I'll give a proper username and password. Okay, so it has to go to the database. Please note it is not there in my project at all. This data is available in somebody else's project. I'm calling it here and then I'm working on it. Okay, so if I give the wrong password or username here, okay, I get login failed. This is happening in my project, the entity framework demo project, but the code actually was written in another project. Okay, please remember this. This right now, since I'm not able to show in two different systems, I'm showing it in the same system. But just imagine the advantage if I had kept it on the internet, and anybody on the internet can use this just by giving my username and password. Okay, so please remember this. This is what is all about. There is a question that can we use var instead of tbl user. Yes, you can use var. Okay, but the thing is here I just wanted to show because I wanted to use this. If I use var, it can store one object or a collection of objects. Since I'm specifically looking for one object, I'm using the specific object name itself. If I'm looking for a collection, I would have just put var. Okay, because otherwise I would use list of user. Okay, that's why I kept it simple at putting as var for your retrieval. But when it is specific to one object, I prefer to use that object name itself so that it's clear instead of using the word var. Okay, so remember this. And Hansel, I think you can just check the documentation of the system itself. When you are running it, you can just move your mouse over there and then say what each and everything returns. You can see that. Okay, so if I put first, what is the documentation there? It returns the element, the first element of a sequence. First or default returns the first element of a sequence or a default value if the sequence contains no elements. Then you have single. Single will throw an exception if there is no element. Okay, so read all those things, you will get the idea. All right. So I think I'll just stop here. Okay, so guys, the target of this particular project is for you to understand that web services are simple methods which are created in a particular project and hosted as a service on the internet. Now, please note, I have used this program, this web service from C# and I utilized in C#. Okay, now please understand this very carefully. I create this from C#. People who are accessing my web service can use PHP or Java or Python, whichever language they are comfortable with. They can try to access my web service, what I've created here. That's the idea, guys. Okay, so please understand this, and with this I'll stop for today.